Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. Welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind. Presented by Bud Light. It's for the fans. Golden Flake, the official potato chip of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And by Baumhower's Victory Grille. Legendary fun, legendary food, and the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide. Now live, this is Crimson Tide Rewind. Here's Roger Hoover.
Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by Bud Light. Welcome, everybody. This is Roger Hoover filling in for Eli Gold, joined by Cory Reamer, former Crimson Tide linebacker, and we're going to be with you for the next hour talking about the win over Austin Peay, but also, I imagine, talking about the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, we've already forgotten about this game Saturday. I forgot we discussed this post-game. It's over and done with. There's no reason to rehash anything from Saturday. There's only one thing that matters for the rest of the season. The biggest game of the year.
Biggest game of the year. The Crimson Tide trying to get win number 10 on the season coming up on Saturday. 2:30 will be the start time at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Our radio coverage across the network will begin at 11:30 a.m. for Alabama against Auburn. If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, you can give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing hotline. 877-202-BAMA is the number to call. And I know you've forgotten about the Austin Peay game, but a 34-0 win over the Governors from Clarksville, Tennessee. Solid performance by the Crimson Tide. Just what were your main takeaways from Saturday?
Yeah, it was. It was a win's a win. You know, you got this game. It's always, a tough one, especially this late in the season. You got all banged up teams that are coming in here playing always right before the biggest game with the Iron Bowl. You hope it's not a look-ahead spot for Alabama, and they showed up and played and dominated an inferior opponent just like they were supposed to. And I think there were some good things that came out of it. One of them being Jace McClellan. I thought he was a star of this game Saturday. You just didn't know what team was going to show up in terms of being excited to play this game. Of course, it's an 11 o'clock kick against an FCS opponent, but like we talked about last week, this was not an Austin Peay team that was just going to be scared to come in this stadium just because of who we were. And they weren't. And I thought that they played extremely tough, came out there with a good game plan. They were moving the ball up and down the field early on in that game, had some little trickeration up their sleeve. Luckily, we were able to put some pressure on them, didn't have time to find some open guys that they had behind our DBs, but we settled in, and that's expected when you've got a game like this. It might take a couple drives just to knock a little bit of the rust off and get your blood flowing a little bit. But I thought overall we did what we were supposed to do. Shut out number 2 of the season by this defense, which was a great performance. Whenever you get a shutout, no matter who it's against, it's a big deal. 5th time this year that we've held opponents to under 10 points, which is also the defense played extremely well, I thought. A lot of good things to take away from both sides of the football. Got to see some young guys at the end of the game as well. And what we talked about last week was hopefully this would have been in hand a little earlier to get some of these guys some more reps. And we just did pull away as much as we needed to go ahead and give these starters a break earlier than we hoped to see. And I tell you what, Bryce took a few hits on Saturday that we were hoping we were going to avoid, but they got after him a little bit. They got him on the ground a few times, but hopefully we got everybody healthy. We had some injuries this past week. We're keeping some guys off the field, and now it's the Iron Bowl, and they're hopefully ready to go, and we got a fully healthy team for a game that matters the most to everybody in the state.
Quick note on Bryce Young. He'll be a guest of ours coming up tomorrow on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR at 2 o'clock on all CTSN social media outlets. He said he is feeling fine after the Austin Peay game, and the shoulder has continued to progress pretty well as the season has gone along. He's going to do more and more in practice, and it seems like that's helped the entire offense get a little bit more in sync the last few weeks.
Yeah, you saw his performance. Was it 18 of 24 for 200 plus? He didn't blow anybody's socks off by any means, but we didn't have to. You got Jace McClellan that goes out there, and I think he had 17 rushes for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns, season highs in yards and touchdowns. And he was the workhorse. With Jahmyr Gibbs sitting on the sideline, it takes you give the ball to Jahmyr. That offensive line plays well. They're effective in the running game, and it takes a lot of pressure off of Bryce Young. He doesn't have to do as much. And when you've got that balanced attack that everybody's been kind of wanting to see all season long. In the last 2 games, we've really seen a lot more of it from the running game, and Jace McClellan has been the workhorse that's provided that. It's good to see, and running back's such a funny position. You got a guy that when you're splitting carries, running back by committee, it's great that you've got all these different guys that bring different things, but sometimes it might just take, 5 or 7 carries for a guy to kind of get in rhythm and start feeling the flow of the game. And when you have Jace as the primary back and getting, most of the carries, you saw him finally kind of catch a groove and bust out some big runs. And it's like Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, Bo Scarborough, all those guys, as the game progresses, those guys always got better and better each and every carry that they got. And that was the case for Jace this past weekend. It was good to see.
Good to see a 34-0 win for Alabama against Austin Peay. And we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the Iron Bowl, and we want to hear from you. Give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. Stay tuned for more. It's Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Handoff right ahead toward the goal line and in. Touchdown, Alabama. Austin Peay thought they had turned away the Tide. They're celebrating. They don't realize Alabama did indeed score. Forward progress got him in. Touchdown, Alabama. And it's 6-0 Crimson Tide.
That was just the start of a shutout victory, 34-0 over Austin Peay on Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Tide fans, you can keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. So the Crimson Tide earned that 9th victory of the season, again taking on Austin Peay this past Saturday with a, as we talked a little bit about in the pregame show and even Crimson Tide Rewind last night, a youthful, energetic head coach who threw everything but the kitchen sink at Alabama, especially early on in that game.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean, he's got, this is a game that has no bearing on their season in the FCS. They're trying to make a playoff, but they've got an opportunity to come in and show the country what they're all about. Getting to play Alabama in Bryant-Denny. Why are you going to hold anything back? And they didn't. They came out there, started early with some trick plays, and he definitely had a lot of energy, especially on that after that highlight. It was hard to watch on the broadcast too. You couldn't tell exactly what happened because they were celebrating like they got to stop, and the camera angle didn't really show us.
Barely got it over.
Barely got it over, but. You could tell, 33 years old, head coach of a football program, which makes me feel old, and he's exciting to watch. I mean, he's been around a few different places at Southern Miss, I believe, the year before or before he came to Austin Peay. But they were competitive, and that's what you want to see from a coach like that and a team like that coming into Bryant-Denny. It's good to see that he's got them excited to play, and they definitely didn't back down at all. And unfortunately, there's a difference in talent level eventually at the end of the day, and Alabama showed up and handled the game like they're supposed to. But it's just a tough game. It's a tough game for a lot of people, for a lot of players. It's just one of those things. I know there's been a lot of talk, especially with the playoff going to 12 games in a couple of years. This game and other conferences always complain the SEC's playing these types of games at the end of the season in November. But I tell you what, when you run the gauntlet in the SEC, it's almost like it's great to have this type of a game. Everybody's beat up, have a little rest. Auburn played Western Kentucky and right before the Iron Bowl. It's not uncommon to see these types of games, but it's still tough to get everybody excited about from a fan standpoint, from a player standpoint. But Coach Saban's done a great job always of, you gotta erase erase what you're seeing from the other sideline. You got to focus on what we got to go out there. And it's a good opportunity for us to get better, to execute our game plan. And there's a lot of improvements that we can make, especially this season. There's still always room for improvement.
Now the focus is the Iron Bowl, and Tide fans, if you're coming to the Iron Bowl, be sure to drop by the Bud Light Iron Bowl tailgate at Druid City Social in downtown Tuscaloosa. There will be live music and ice-cold Bud Lights leading up to kickoff. We'll talk more about Alabama against Auburn when we return in just a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Behind Young in the pistol formation. Bryce getting the snap, wanting to throw, looking left side. That ball is going to be caught. Touchdown. Jermaine Burton giving Alabama a 13-0 lead.
So join us tonight on Crimson Tide Rewind. Please give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing hotline at 877-202-BAMA. And when that first call comes in, it's always presented by Alabama 811. Alabama 811 reminding you to call 811 before you dig in. Calling Jermaine Burton's number a lot was Bryce Young on Saturday.
Yeah, it was great to see a guy that we all expected a lot out of. You know, I don't think anybody was thinking that he and Tyler Harrell were going to replace, you know, Jamison Williams at all, or Jalen Waddle, all those guys in terms of being the same playmakers that those two guys were. But you saw what we expected from Burton came alive a little bit this past weekend. I think it was 7 catches for 128 yards, and he caught, I think, almost every ball that was thrown in his direction and made a lot of plays. It kind of just – with that performance, and then also the performance from Jace McClellan, it's like, oh man, this just kind of makes you think of what could have been if we could have gotten those performances all season long. I think it was only the second time we've had a receiver go over 100 yards this season. Ja'Cory Brooks, I believe, was the other one against Vanderbilt. It was good to see. I'm glad to see that he was able to have some success, and I'm sure Bryce was as well. There were still moments where Bryce was sitting back there with a lot of time looking for somebody to come open, but Jermaine Burton, when the ball was thrown his way, he took advantage of it, made a lot of big plays, 2 touchdowns. Big day for him.
And this is going to be a ball game against Auburn coming up where these young wide receivers continue stepping up and have to keep making plays.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's one thing we saw with the rushing attack that we had this past weekend, and we're going in against the Auburn team that I think is 3rd worst in the SEC in terms of stopping the run, giving up about 181 yards a game. So, you know, you hope that we can come into this with a game plan of let's take advantage of strength on weakness matchup. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be one of those matchups that where if they're going to be – they've watched Alabama tape so far. They know that we haven't run the ball very well throughout the season except for Ole Miss and this past weekend in terms of running it consistently and handing the ball off a lot. We relied on the passing game a decent amount. It's going to be interesting to see what Auburn does in terms of either stacking the box or just doing like everybody else has been doing and dropping 8 guys and keeping the ball in front of them and not letting Bryce Young beat them. But it's a good sign that Jermaine Burton was able to find a groove this past weekend, and hopefully that carries over into Saturday.
Again, our first call tonight is presented by Alabama 811. Alabama 811 reminding you to call 811 before you dig as we go to the Yellowhammer Brewing hotline, and we stay here in Birmingham where Michael joins us now. Roll Tide, Mike.
Roll Tide, guys. Ready for the Saturday showdown, the Iron Bowl in T-Town. What's at stake for Bama in this Iron Bowl game? Well, you try to keep the Iron Bowl trophy in Tuscaloosa for another 365 days. And go to a nice, beautiful bowl game on New Year's Day. That's what's at stake. Trying to get to the New Year's Day bowl, just like a playoff game, to speak. I don't know who will play in the New Year's Day bowl. We'll win Saturday, we'll go to the New Year's Day bowl and take on whoever has to play New Year's Day bowl and bring home the New Year's Day trophy. That's what's at stake, Bama. So just take down Auburn and win the New Year's Day bowl game in January.
I like it. Roll Tide, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a good point. There's still a lot at stake for this game. I mean, one thing is just straight pride. I mean, it's the biggest game. It's Coach Saban always preaches, no game is bigger than the other. It doesn't matter. Each one matters just as much as the next, except for this one. And I think we saw that when Coach Saban first got there in 2007. We were coming off the tail end of Auburn having a pretty good handle on Alabama during this matchup, and we played in Auburn at Jordan-Hare, Coach Saban's first year, and I'll never forget the speech that he gave after the game was over with of how much he realized this game means, and he said it that night, we're never losing to these guys again. I mean, that's how much it affected him only playing in it one time. He immediately understood how much this game means, not only to the team, but the fans, the state, to everybody. No matter what the season, what's going on for either team during the season, this game matters to both teams. There's a lot of pride involved with it. And like what Mike said is there's still more to play for than just winning this ball game. But you look at the state of Auburn's program right now. You know, there's a lot more pressure for Alabama to go out there and win this ball game than there is for Auburn. You know, they're in the middle of trying to find a head coach. And you don't want to be that Alabama team that goes out there and loses to Auburn in the Iron Bowl when they're in the middle of a coaching hire search and having the season that they've had. Alabama better come prepared to play, because these are always the games that you just can pretty much throw the record books out. It doesn't matter who's good, who's not. If Alabama's got a chance to win, go play for a national championship, and Auburn's out of it, we've seen crazier things happen. And it's just an interesting game that always has some different, I don't know what to call them, breaks, or just the flow of the game just becomes different, and everybody's excited to be out there playing. Alabama better be ready to play Saturday, because, like you said, New Year's Day Bowl is on the line. There's still a lot at stake for this team come Saturday.
It's the Iron Bowl. It's coming up this Saturday, Alabama against Auburn. We're going to continue talking about that throughout the rest of Crimson Tide Rewind. If you'd like to join us, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Looking left side, has a man there, but he's got it picked off. Kool-Aid with a pick, 30, 40, midfield. Kool-Aid tripped up as he gets near the 45-yard line.
To be part of tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind show, submit your question to Cory Reamer on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. Also streaming live right now to YouTube, Twitter as well. Ethan Carabin, our video producer, monitoring the comments section. So if we see an interesting question from there, we will certainly take it, as well as we get set for Alabama against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And of course, Cory Reamer, you're a Birmingham area native. What did this game mean to you growing up?
Oh, man, you just remember being in elementary school. all the how much everybody wore their jerseys every single day. It's Thanksgiving week, so you had your Alabama-Auburn day. And just the little fights that you'd get in with all your elementary school classmates on who's going to win and what it meant coming back. You didn't want to be on the losing side going back into class on Monday after this game was over with. I mean, it was just there's pride across the board from that young of an age all the way up. It just means a ton. It just was even when we played. I think we played on Friday a couple times when I was there, and it surrounds your Thanksgiving conversation. You know, we had a split family. We had Alabama and Auburn, so it always made for some interesting Thanksgiving meals. You know, it's something that you always talk about and get excited about. And whenever you had those Thanksgiving meals, the game was played, and you had to go back and see the same family on Christmas Day, and you just waiting for those comments to come across the dinner table. So it just means a lot. I mean, it's a huge game. I loved playing it. Like I said, it didn't matter what was going on. In 2009, we had a chance to go to the SEC championship, play for a national championship, and we go down to Auburn, and Gus Malzahn brings out every single trick play in the book for that game as well. And we were down early, had to claw back and find a way to win that ball game. Like I said, it doesn't matter what the record books say. Both teams are showing up to play. And then on the flip side of that, the next year after I graduated, 2010, the Cam game, I was at that one, and we had some friends that were with us that were talking about, let's leave it. They were Auburn fans. They were like, can we please leave at halftime? They were ready to go home. We were going to the hunt camp that weekend, and they were ready to get out of there. They didn't want to stick around for the second half. I was like, no, you're staying and watching every single minute of this. And because we had to endure a lot of losses over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, we weren't able to pull that one off. I wish we would have left at halftime.
That was my first Iron Bowl. Yeah,
but it's just like you just expect the unexpected with this game. Yeah. And you see an Auburn team right now, Carnell Williams is down there coaching this as the interim head coach. He's got these guys excited to play football. You can just tell the sideline is rejuvenated with excitement. They're playing for themselves. They're playing for Coach Cadillac, and it's a scary thought. You know, you saw them on Saturday. It was a close game against a good Western Kentucky game, and then they dominated the second half. It just seems like they're out there playing and having a good time as a team, and that's always a little bit scary when you've got those guys coming in with that kind of momentum. And so it's you better buckle up and get ready, because the thing was too is all the guys that are on the other side of the field. A lot of them you got recruited with. You played against them in high school. You know those guys. So not just from that, Alabama versus Auburn, but it means a lot to when you go out and you see those guys after the season's over with. You don't want to be the one that's like, oh, yeah, you got us again. You run into them in Birmingham when you're home for the holidays or whatever else it is, or in the summer. You don't want to be on the losing side of that.
Certainly don't. We'll talk more Iron Bowl memories when we come back in a moment as we're getting ready for Saturday, Alabama against Auburn in Tuscaloosa. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
out, stacked in tight on the right side. They fake a pitch right. They'll roll the man left, look deep, all alone. Burton catch made 25. Now the defense fills in as he'll spin away at the 15 and then get out of bounds. A gain of 50 yards on the play.
Again, if you'd like to join us on tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind show, submit your question to Cory Reamer on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. We're getting ready for the Iron Bowl on Saturday, Alabama against Auburn. And you were mentioning a couple of Iron Bowl memories from your playing days, even the 2009 game. Didn't you all have a tough time even getting to the stadium that day?
Yeah, there was a little skepticism on some issues that we had of being able to get over to the stadium. We stayed in Montgomery. Was where the hotel was, yeah. And so for some reason, 85 was just having some issues where it's about the time when we were leaving Montgomery to get over there to the stadium, we had to rush in. You know, usually have some time to kind of collect your thoughts and not in a huge rush to get your ankles taped and get your stuff on. You can sit there and kind of relax a little bit before you got to go, do the pregame warm-up. And it was – as soon as our feet hit the ground off that bus, it was rush and get our gear on, get taped up. I mean, it was a scramble. I'm not going to say that anything funny was going on, but it just seemed like it was kind of interesting that we had a police escort and couldn't get over to the stadium in time. And they knew they know what time you're supposed to be over there. Anyways, yeah.
Well, and Coach Saban's such a creature of habit. You guys are as well. Being in this program, that had to make things difficult getting ready for the game.
Yeah, it's not the first time you had something from an opposing locker room. I mean, you had hotel issues, fire alarms going off in the middle of the night, or you show up and you're in the guest locker room and there's no doors or walls in the bathrooms or anything. Just anything that you can do to make you uncomfortable. I think Florida for a long time had the pink bathroom, I believe is what it was. I mean, just anything to just kind of throw your mind, your thought process off of what you're actually there to do. Just put you in these little metal lockers, you got 2 players to each locker room. It's got probably 40 lockers in it, and you've got 65 guys traveling, just trying to find space, just make you uncomfortable as you possibly can. And I guess getting to the stadium late and having to rush and not being in your same routine is one of those tactics.
But hopefully you took your time celebrating and then leaving after that dramatic win. I was still McElroy to Upchurch, one of the best plays in Alabama.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was had to drive the length of the field, too. Yeah. I mean, it was a heck of a drive. And there wasn't much from an offensive standpoint that we had going for us at that point in the game. So for us to be able to find a way at the end, it kind of reminds me of last year's game where you've got to have it when the game's on the line and you find a way to get the ball in the end zone and win the football game. It's just you've got to be able to put everything behind you. Each coach always says each play has a life and history of its own. Each drive does. You just got to be able to move on. And it's a tough place to play down there, and I'm hoping that everybody's going to be excited to show up on Saturday to make it pretty tough on Auburn. You don't want to give them any reason for hope or optimism. And I don't know, maybe at the hotel in Birmingham, we've built these 3 lanes coming down to Tuscaloosa now. It's a lot easier to get through. Hopefully we can find a way to slow them down, make them a little bit uncomfortable too.
Well, they came back in 2010, but since then, 5 straight wins for Alabama at home in Tuscaloosa. There haven't been too many that went down to the wire as well. So, again, hopefully that will continue coming up this Saturday when the Crimson Tide meet the Auburn Tigers. We'll keep talking about that. We'll even hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, when we come back in just a moment as we continue live from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills, and you can celebrate 40 years of Baumhower's Victory Grill this fall with new flavors including Alabama hot chicken, fajita wraps, and legendary buffalo wings. Baumhower's Victory Grill. Legendary fun, legendary food. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. head coach Nick Saban meeting with the media to kickstart Iron Bowl Week 2022. Here's some of what Coach Saban had to say today at his weekly press conference.
I think we did a lot of good things in the last game. I think one of the things that probably we need to get corrected is, we did get 3 turnovers defensively, but we also had 3 turnovers. So, ball security is, a very important part of being successful. Gives the other team 3 extra possessions where you could have scored. So, and I think the emphasis has to continue to be on, whenever you're less than perfect in terms of your execution, whether it's fundamental execution or whatever it is, that's when you get exposed. So that's why we got to keep coaching our team to get it right on a consistent basis. This is one of the greatest, rivalry games in college football. And, most every team in rivalry games, sort of it's a part of their legacy in terms of how did they do in the rivalry game. And this is one of the biggest ones, and it means a lot to a lot of people in our state. It means a lot to, us, our players, and our fans, and we're going to do the best job we can to, get ready for, this game. I think Cadillac Williams has done a really, really good job. They've played really well these last 3 games.
That was head coach Nick Saban meeting with the media earlier today in Tuscaloosa. And speaking of how you did against Auburn, what was your final record? 3-1?
No, I was unfortunately 2-3. I guess I was there for 5 years. 05 was the first game that we played down in Auburn, and I wasn't actually playing, didn't even dress, but I was a freshman, I guess. And then we lost the first 3 that I was there, and then we won the last 2. That one in 08, that first one to get the monkey off your back after you've been beat, 5 or 6 times in a row, was a pretty big one. It was a lot of fun. It was a beat down, too. It was one of the coldest games we've ever played in, and I think we ended up winning, 38-3, 38-0, something like that. Yeah. I mean, it was just an absolute beat down. That was a huge one, and then the fact that the next year we go to their place and win on the road, got a chance to go play in the SEC championship, ultimately win a national championship, was a pretty big one. So I'll take it, even though 2-3 isn't, but that was always something the coaches, the strength staff, especially when I first got there, a lot of those guys played at Alabama. Terry Jones, the legendary Terry Jones was one of the strength coaches, and that was what he always asked when we played Tennessee and when we played Auburn. That's what you're going to be remembered by. What's your record against those guys? The biggest rivalry games that we have, what's your record against them? And he always reminded us that I think he only lost 1 out of those games since he was there. So it's a big deal. This game's got a lot to play for outside of just that too. And you'll laugh, and I don't expect this to actually happen, but there is a path. For Alabama to jump out and potentially make a playoff. I think this past weekend with TCU almost going down, Michigan almost going down, it could have really opened up the window for Alabama to make it into the playoffs. I think it's going to be pretty tough. But
what else do you have on the path?
Yeah, I think what was it? TCU loses in the Big 12 championship. LSU loses to Georgia. USC loses to either Notre Dame or the Pac-12 championship, and Clemson loses in the ACC championship. So just a few things.
Okay.
There is a path, but just a few things have to happen, and crazier things have happened. So there's a lot of hopeful. I found out after Saturday that there's a lot of hopeful Alabama fans that there is still a chance. I mean, we're not dead yet. It's as much as most people thought we were earlier in the season, there is still a chance.
That's some pretty advanced calculus, but let's go. I'm ready to go for it. We will continue talking about the Crimson Tide and the Tigers when we come back in a moment. Do have to say a special thanks to Onward Reserve, the official apparel provider of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. They've given us such great gear this season. Visit onwardreserve.com for all of your game day apparel. Live authentically with Onward Reserve. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by Bud Light. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
in motion right side. They'll swing it out to him. He'll make the grab. 10-5, walks into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. 10 yards on the play, designed beautifully. And with 13:20 to go, Bama pushes the lead to 33-0.
The prescription for success is presented by Payless Drugs. Payless Drugs is your locally owned family pharmacy with 4 locations in Birmingham. Payless can handle your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. Getting ready for the Iron Bowl. What is the prescription for success for Alabama on Saturday?
I think Coach Saban hit on it a little bit there. The turnover margin this season, I think we're -6 or -7 in the turnover margin, and that has been something that has really plagued us a lot this season. Is even though we've had some momentum going, it's just not having that ball security, turning the football over, giving teams more opportunities than they should have. And it's, unfortunately, sometimes, most of the time, I think that anytime we have turned the ball over, the opposing teams have taken advantage of it and turned it into points. And you can't do that against this team on Saturday. That, and let's see some more of what we've been successful at for the last 2 weeks. We've been able to run the ball effectively against Ole Miss and Austin Peay. We got an Auburn team that's coming in that's ranked in the bottom of the SEC in terms of stopping the run. Let's go out there, and that's how you dominate teams like this, is you go out there and force your will and put Jace McClellan. We'll see Jahmyr Gibbs coming back. It's going to be interesting to see how they break up these splits on who's going to get the bulk of the carries. We're going to put Jahmyr Gibbs more of a wide receiver role and let Jace McClellan go out there and do what he's been doing the last couple of games, just get 17 or 19 carries per game the last 2 games. It's going to be interesting to see how that all works out, because both of those guys are dynamic. I mean, I would say that we wouldn't even be where we are today without Jahmyr Gibbs. But then you also turn around and you see us without him, and you've seen the effectiveness of the running game and what it does for this offense in terms of opening up other opportunities in the playbook and taking some of that pressure off of Bryce Young. But that's going to be the key. Is Jermaine Burton needs to have another game like he did this past weekend, catching every single football, not turning the football over, and running effectively. I mean, that's all. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's block and tackle. Let's go out there and just win this ball game. I mean, how much harder can it be?
That's what football comes down to. So on the other side of that, Alabama, how can the Crimson Tide stop the run? Because that's one thing Auburn does really well. Yeah, you look at Tank Bigsby and what he's done. This Auburn offensive line is they have a lot left to be desired in terms of having Tank Bigsby in their backfield and what he's been able to accomplish. You know, their offensive line woes that they've had this season, a lot of new faces. You see what he's still able to accomplish with a group that's in, the starting 5 offensive linemen who haven't really been productive. But these last 2 games, they've really leaned on him heavily, and he's shown why he's one of the better backs in this conference. Even though the stats might not show it, he's still an explosive player. He can make big-time plays at any point. It's going to require a lot from our front 7 playing sound defense, and we've done a pretty good job of that this season of making sure guys are in the right gaps, doing what it is they're supposed to be doing, and not trying to make plays that aren't theirs. And I think that's a hard thing to do, because it's the Iron Bowl. You want to go out there and you want to make the big plays, and then all of a sudden you're doing something that you're not, so you're in the wrong gap. You're thinking that you're going to be able to make a play. You slide over, and then all of a sudden the Tank's a guy that can just is that shifty that if one gap closes, he's going to find that opening. It requires all front 7 guys set the edge, turn them back into the strength and the teeth of the defense. From a defensive standpoint, and everybody's got to rally and make tackles. We can't allow these guys to get hit at the line of scrimmage and gain 3, 4, 5 yards after first contact. We've got to knock these guys back. And not only can Tank Bigsby run the football well, 119 yards in the last game against Western Kentucky, but Jarquez Hunter had 109 yards. And then quarterback Robbie Ashford, he threw for 102 yards, but he was able to rush for a net of 37. He's very mobile. Yeah, he is. I mean, that's the strength of his game. You ask any Auburn fan, I guarantee you it's like that's what the threat of Robbie Ashford is. I mean, he's got a strong arm, but his accuracy hasn't been great. But don't be shocked if you don't come out on Saturday and see him hitting a lot of guys in stride. But the main threat that you see from Robbie Ashford, he's probably one of the best athletes on the field. And I think I've even heard some of the Auburn players talking about how he's one of the fastest guys on the team. And I watched a few of their games this season, and you could just tell you have a defender that looks like he's got an angle on him, and all of a sudden he just turns the corner and just leaves the guy in the dust, and the defender's out there diving for ankles trying to get him on the ground. It's going to take really strong play from our corners
because that's how they like to run, sideline to sideline. It's not a lot of design runs up the middle. It's Robbie Ashford's going to flush out of the pocket, try to make plays with his feet. You got to have, in those types of scenarios, you have guys that got to come up, and safeties either got to run the alley and get them on the ground, or corners got to be able to come up and make plays, make tackles for a guy that's this fast, because he's going to be able to outrun a lot of the defensive linemen that are giving chase to him. So he's definitely a threat. We've seen a lot of running quarterbacks this season. I would say he's probably the most athletic in terms of being able to make plays with his feet. If we can just get some good coverage sacks with some man-to-man coverage, and we got somebody out there, kind of like what LSU did to Bryce Young, put a spy on these guys that can chase them down. It wouldn't be a bad game plan. It's just a matter of, do we have a spy that can keep up with the speed, because he's just such a fast athlete.
Certainly is. That's part of the challenge for Alabama coming up on Saturday when the Crimson Tide welcome in the Auburn Tigers for the Iron Bowl. We'll talk more about that when we come back for our final segment in just a moment as we continue live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is presented by Bud Light. Bud Light proudly welcomes back Tide fans to Bryant-Denny Stadium. This year, Bud Light is for the fans. And speaking of Bud Light being for the fans, don't forget to come by the Druid City Social in downtown Tuscaloosa this Saturday for Bud Light's Iron Bowl tailgate featuring live music and ice-cold Bud Lights. Leading up to kickoff, we hope to see you there. We hope to be back at Bryant-Denny Stadium for another Alabama win against Auburn this Saturday.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, that's the game plan. You show up and get this one. You know, we talked about the season not going the way that you wanted it to with the losses to Tennessee and to LSU. What's this team going to play for? This is what you play for right here. And this one shouldn't be hard to get the team excited about. They should be getting after it this week in practice. It should mean a lot to them. It means a lot to it, like we've talked about all show long. It matters, and you want to make sure that you go out there. And being at home, you want to give your fans the last game in Bryant-Denny for the season, give them something to be excited about. These seniors, go out on a high note and extend your season in a positive way. You go out there and got a chance to move on and play in a New Year's Day Bowl. There's still a lot to play for, and I'm excited, man. This is one that it always gets you. This past week, you looked at the schedule of the SEC, and you looked all across college football. There weren't a lot of games that really got you excited. It turns out to be one of the more exciting games with the Tennessee, South Carolina game, Georgia really struggling against Kentucky, the TCU, Baylor game. I mean, all of it.
USC, UCLA was great, too.
UCLA was great. Michigan, Illinois was another good one. A lot more exciting games than we probably expected to going into this past weekend. But this is rivalry week. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. You got a lot of implications in the Ohio State-Michigan game, but this one I would say is probably the biggest rivalry game of all of college football, and there's a reason why, is the fans get so excited about it, and the players take a lot of pride in it too. If it's the first one for a guy who's not from here, didn't grow up in this game, they're going to figure out real quickly what this game's about.
Absolutely, because, Ohio State fans can stay in Ohio. Michigan fans can stay in Michigan. Here in Alabama, all mingling together.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of Auburn people in Baumhowers tonight that are not loving the fact that they're having to listen to this show. I mean,
they didn't expect that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's going to be good. I'm excited about it, man. This is always a fun week for everybody. And like you said, it's a notch on the belt for everybody. This is, what's your record against this team? What's your record against Auburn? So it means a lot to these players.
Certainly does, and of course, this is a huge week for Alabama football. Anytime you have the Iron Bowl, do have to give a tip of the cap as well to the Alabama soccer team, reaching the Final 8, the Elite 8 of the NCAA tournament. In soccer, they'll be hosting Duke on Friday night at 6 p.m. the Alabama Soccer Stadium. Tickets are available on RolledTide.com. Also, men's basketball is going to be busy in Portland, Oregon at the Phil Knight Invitational, starting play on Thanksgiving night against Michigan State. The women's basketball team's in the Bahamas right now. It's just a busy time of the year, Corey.
We're a soccer school, man. That's what I said.
Football can mean a lot of different things. Is America a soccer country?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we blew that lead late in it, but hopefully we can find a way to get back. I mean, I'm just excited we're in the World Cup. I mean, it's fun to watch. And the basketball team's playing great, man. I'm excited to watch this team. They've been fun to watch. Had a big win the other night against Jacksonville State. Hopefully they continue. You got a pretty tough stretch coming up here.
Yeah, Phil Knight Invitational will be fun. Well, Corey, we're going to talk to you pregame and postgame coming up for the Iron Bowl. Roll Tide.
Looking forward to it. Roll Tide.
That's Cory Reamer. I'm Roger Hoover, and that is going to do it for this edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by Bud Light, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, it's available on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. Special thanks to, as well as Cory Reamer, our producer and engineer Todd Robbins, as well as Jerry Kelly back at our Learfield Studios, video producer Ethan Carabin. For Cory Reamer, I'm Roger Hoover, filling in for Eli Gold, saying thank you for listening to Crimson Tide Rewind. Good night, and roll, Tide, roll.